Hey, what's up, everybody? Ali After back with a brand new video. Today, I want to talk about strategy when it comes to your personal credit and some of the things that we need to pay attention to when it comes to the way we deploy our strategy. What exactly are we doing that's different? And how do we make our strategy stand apart? Excuse me. So, why am I talking to you about this today? Well, the simple fact is that lately I've seen a lot of people, my customers specifically, go through a cycle where they're sending this piece of mail and they're trying to get the credit fixed. But as they're doing it, what's happening is they're getting a lot of kickbacks. And that's pretty much a traditional way of getting some sort of outcomes for the credit bureaus. There's a lot of things that are being ignored by the bureaus, negligently, of course, and we know this and we see that on a regular basis. And we can attest to that because that is something that is happening. And there's really nothing much more that we can do about the way they conduct themselves in terms of their investigation. But the focus here is that I want you to understand what uniquely we can do that's different, that'll make us automatically stand apart, that'll make us do things in a way that gives us more leverage in our situation. So the first thing that I think we can comfortably start with is to differentiate our strategies from the other typical templated strategies that are out there. So a perspective way of looking at this is, if I send the documents the way they are right now, and if I were to send it to the credit bureaus, how specifically is it going to be looked at into the eyes of the bureaus? And most of the times, and it's a given, there's no way of avoiding this or going around it, is you have situations where you have, the bureaus taking the information through eOscar, and then they scan it, and it comes off as a templated document. So in their systems, they're stating that the information that you're submitting to them has been verified in the past, or that this looks like a credit repair clinic or a credit repair company, and they'll give you a response, and they'll give you a response saying that, hey, this doesn't look like it's coming from you, or this doesn't necessarily look like you sent this. If you want to fix your personal credit, go ahead and give us a call and we can look into this for free and all sorts of stuff, right? That's the typical type of thing that we get as a response, when we're trying to deal with these crazy credit bureaus. So, and the reason why, like I said, is because of the fact that we're actually sending them pieces of mail that looks very identical to some of the templates that are out there. And that's something that we really need to hone in on, because that's actually causing more damage than good to our ability to get the outcome. So when you look at it this way, and when you try to break it down in that context, then the reason why we're getting this is because, like I said, automatic response from the bureaus. But what are some of the things that we can do individually to avoid those type of responses? What are some of the things that we can do individually to help us, stand apart with those responses, that we can say comfortably that, we've done something different, and we've made every measure, we've taken every measure possible, and we've taken every step possible to avoid such generic responses. And to, obviously, we cannot guarantee that type of response we get from the bureaus, because they will do whatever they can do based on their comfort zones and their level of interest to help you. But we can increase our odds of trying to increase the efficiency of how we go about doing it. So to avoid those templated responses, you have to start with a strategy that really depicts the way we analyze our reports. And the reason why, it's because, factually speaking, yes, very few people are actually on the dispute resolution department. And what I mean by that is, you don't have hundreds of people that are looking at disputes. In fact, the system does that by the hundreds, or thousands per day. But on your side of things, it's like, okay, you want to get a manual review, all that kind of stuff. Chances of a manual review is very limited. And there's a reason why. It's because a chance of a manual review only happens once in a while. And that's, again, it's based on a binary structure, right, where automatically they would take a file and say, let's check that. And it's like a protocol within the bureaus. So most of the time, the eOscar does its job. And there's really nothing that you and I can do to make it stop doing its job. So when I talked about identifying your credit report's errors, factually looking at it, analyzing it on a deeper level, when you do that, you increase your odds of getting a higher, more efficient response rather than a templated response stating that we don't recognize this, or this is probably not you, or something like that, right? So in order to increase that efficiency, to get the best possible outcome, to get the best possible response, you need to study your reports. There's a whole structure around understanding what your report should look like. Most of us, we try to find a way, and these are people like, yourself who are learning personal credit, watching my video for that matter, or perhaps even trying to, learn from other people as well. Most of us, we start off by trying to understand the simplest way of getting a resolution or disputing, or let's say taking off negative items from your credit report. Most of the times that effort that we deploy, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a shortcut. Albeit, shortcuts are not bad, obviously, because if they were, then nobody would do them. But the problem with the credit bureaus is that every time a shortcut that we take, or we try to get a resolution faster than the usual time frame, is being studied very thoroughly, because it's basically something that they're catching outside of the norm. Because for them, the norm is you send a dispute letter printed out from the FTC's website or the CFPB's website and saying, I dispute this account with a specific, number of reasons, and it has to be based on whatever the eOSCR recognizes. But then you start doing different things. And then what happens is the eOSCR catches on, and it starts to study that, and it starts to build it within its system, and the algorithms get smarter and more intelligent to deal with that. So when it comes to analyzing your reports and when it comes to getting real results, you have to think outside the box. You have to literally start to dig deeper into your credit reports, know how to read them properly. Because the result of creating an effective strategy or executing an effective strategy is based on how much you know and what you know about that specific strategy. And to be more clear about that, it's basically saying, hey, look, I have a series of different mistakes in my credit report, and I can see them very clearly. Now it's a perspective of, digging deeper and taking that information, extracting it, and putting it into a documentation that is not necessarily generic. Because we do get a lot of generic, right? And the reason we get a lot of generic is because we see that the structure that we deployed when it comes to personal credit is not being taken seriously. And it's being used like a template, and it's being automatically responded so like if it were a template. So a deeper understanding of your credit reports is how you're going to avoid a templated response. A deeper understanding of what to analyze, what to look for specifically on a credit report, how to study it, how to read it properly, how it should have appeared, and by the way, the length in which the information was inaccurately reporting is also a violation of the FCRA. It's a question of the damage that's caused by every single instance that negative item is inaccurately reporting. But to point that out requires a specific set of language and know-how, and more specifically, if you really want to enforce that, and you want to bring it to a process where it goes through legal, and eventually, you decide to go ahead and pursue them in court, you would have to have demonstrated over time that you've attempted to at least fix it with the credit bureaus, and of course, no outcomes were given, or you were completely disregarded, and they were being very negligent on their part. So that requires, obviously deep understanding of getting the knowledge to the point where you know exactly what you need to say, how to analyze your reports, try to get the best outcomes possible, and being able to differentiate between, all these type of things that are happening. So my response to you is to avoid a templated response, to avoid a system where you're not categorized like any other dispute letter or you're getting a generic kickback. It's to deep dive into understanding the reports, deep dive into how to specify what type of account you're looking at, what information should be represented in that account, how the information should appear, what are some of the off items that are there. We talked about the date strategy, which is a simple process in which you will understand that in the Ultimate Personal Credit Mastery, I teach that a little bit more thoroughly, but I'm going to create a video on that, and you're going to see why this is going to be critical. But just understand this very clearly, is that you need to really know and be very customized and hone in on the specificity of how you're going to ask them a line of questions or challenging negative items. Because if you cannot do that the proper way, and if you don't know how to identify the proper way, you're going to be dragged down. You're going to get results that don't last, and it's going to hurt you longer than you can imagine. So that's how you avoid a templated response, right? So just to summarize, understand your reports on a deeper level first, right? Second, once you do understand them on a deeper level, then provide documentation or create documentation that supports what you're saying, show proof, take a snapshot of the report, give them a copy of the report, whatever is necessary to get you across the bump. Once you've satisfied that, then you go ahead and you stand apart. Then you send them documentation with a certified mail, hopefully, so that you can track your efforts. Once you get a response back, then at that time you can open up and say, you know what, we open a conversation, or at least a challenge that is in our favor, rather than it being kicked back because it was considered a generic template or because the investigation was concluded prior, right? So that was my 2 cents on this, on how to avoid the templated response for your credit bureau. I know it's a bit long. I just wanted to, drag this into a conversation where you guys can understand the emphasis that I'm putting here, so that you can learn, from attempting these type of strategies. So if you guys are new, you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing and turning the notifications on to all SurveyTimes videos like these pop up. You will be the first to know. On that note, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and share it with those people that are trying to fix their credit but are not getting the outcomes, and perhaps this message will help them move forward. If you have any specific questions in reference to deep diving into credit reports, or what to do, what to look for, obviously there's a new video that's going to come up. It's going to be called the date method, and I'll tell you exactly what the process is. But if you have a specific question in reference to today's conversation, feel free to leave it in the comment section below so that we can go ahead and have a conversation there as well. Once again, this is your guide and mentor, Ali Tarafter. Definitely catch you guys on the next one.